Well. Home are a Football League team. If you don't know how that happened, you need to go back and watch the last episode. But today is going to be our traditional season review and summer transfer episode, but probably a slightly different one to usual, because over the course of this summer, not only are we preparing for life in a football league, but we're also going professional. But that doesn't happen until mid-July. So I'm not quite sure how transfers and contract negotiations are going to work before then. This could be a challenging one. Hello and welcome to part 54 of It's Coming Home. I'm Kevin. Coming up on today's episode, we have our summer transfers and season review and all of that stuff. But before we go any further, as I record this, with this close to 50,000 subscribers on the channel, I'd very much like to achieve that. We might have already got there by the time the video has come out, but either way, if you aren't yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get to 50,000 subscribers. I think that's an appropriate way to celebrate getting home into the Football League. But let's get started with our season review. Firstly, before we do that, Adam Cywinski. I know a lot of you doubted a 5'8" goalkeeper, but Adam Cywinski is now a National League record holder for most clean sheets in a season, beating whoever Hugo Keto is, Fylde's goalkeeper from a couple of years ago. But this is now our overall best 11, and Cywinski has forced his way into the overall best 11, in fact. So all-time best 11 at home now is Cywinski in goal, a back four of Webber, Proctor, Colley and Carter at right back, which shows we've had a bit of a dearth of decent right backs over the years. There's no room for Dean Morris in this team, I've just noticed. The player now playing in the Premier League. A midfield of Phillips, Larrick Fernandez and Wolf. So that's basically this season's midfield. With Cottrell and Stanley as wingers and Harris as the lone striker. So also no room in the all-time best 11 for Mick Powell, which is a big thing. On the bench, we've got Mayle, Parry, Critchlow Noble, who's now retired, which is a real shame. Retired as a player, age 24. Lewis Tyler, of course, the playoff final hero. Lewis O'Brien, just perennial substitute. He's been here a while now. He's in the all-time best 11, but he's not started many games. Similar, I guess, to Shane Phillips, who's also got a lot of substitute appearances over the years. Dean Morris, who, like I say, now a Premier League player, must be closing in on becoming a full England international, earning 86 grand a week, valued at 11.5 million, 19 under-21 caps, played 29 games for Huddersfield in the Premier League this season. Did Huddersfield stay up? They did stay up, so he's going to be in the Premier League again next year. It's surely only a matter of time before a big Premier League team picks up Dean Morris and he becomes an established Premier League star and England international, and Mick Powell also on the bench. Anthony Harris is someone we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on this summer, because the last couple of times we've tried to sign him on loan, we've been rejected because we were non-league. I wonder if getting into League Two might signal the return of Anthony Harris after, 5 years away has it been? 1, 2, 3... He's been away for 4 years now. He's only scored 2 goals in those 4 years, but he did get 57 goals in the 2 years previous to that for us. So we'd obviously take him back. It's whether or not we'd be able to bring him back. How has Lewis Tyler played 100 games for us? That can't be right. He had... Oh, I guess they're league games. My word. He's been here 2 years and played 100 games. That shows the cup runs we've been on. That's mad. So that's your all-time best 11 summary. We've just done that without needing this. But yeah, there we go. End of season awards. Patrick Webber getting player of the season. That's a bit of a surprise. I mean, he's a very good left back. But player of the season? I guess that says a lot about how we're quite a defensively minded team now. We're good at the back. We've just set a clean sheets record. And our left back has been named player of the season. So Webber as player of the season, Stanley second, and Lewis O'Brien third. Again, Lewis O'Brien must be wondering what on earth he has to do to force his way into the team as a regular starter. He's in our all-time best 11. He's our third best player according to our fans. And I don't ever start him. I'm a monster. Goal of the season goes to Larrick Fernandez. Let's have a little look at it. Who we will try and get him back on loan next season, but I assume we'll struggle, but we'll obviously try. But it's a Larrick Fernandez free kick, and I mean, that is a beauty. What a goal from Larrick Fernandez. Adam Cywinski, signing of the season on a free transfer. He's obviously here on loan last year, but signed permanently this year. And I don't see any reason why we need to replace him as our goalkeeper. He's still got room to improve. I'm very happy with him as our keeper. And signing of the season is Billy Sass Davis, who came into our back four. He was one of the ones we took a bit of a risk on. He was at Hereford the season before in the National League. It's not like he was a big Premier League player who got released. He was playing the division below. So I know he'd played a little bit in League Two previously for a few years. But playing down at Hereford in the National League South, only played 23 games. Not a particularly impressive average rating in that time either. We brought him in on a non-contract basis and he forced his way into the team, forced his way onto a contract, and I guess we probably need to give him another contract now because his contract is up. But he was a cracking signing. And if we look at the stats for the season as well, Mick Powell, obviously top scorer, although he did miss the playoff final with injury, but that's a decent career, isn't it? Bringing us up from the Northern Premier League Division 1 East. And unless someone offers us silly money for him this summer, he will get the opportunity to play in the Football League for us as well. After 223 league games, 141 league goals. I suspect he won't be my first choice striker next season because we'll either bring in Anthony Harris or we've got to bring in someone who's going to be a bit more consistent. I don't think we can rely on Powell week in, week out. But he'll definitely get an opportunity to prove himself. But he finished as top scorer again. Webber with highest average rating. Most assists, Stanley. And there's Lewis O'Brien again. I've got to start playing that man. Shane Phillips, best pass completion. Mick Powell, most man of the match. And then there's your disciplinary stuff. But team of the season was Civitar in goal. Back four of Webber, Proctor, Sass Davis and Daly Campbell. Phillips, Wolf and O'Brien is the midfield. Interesting that O'Brien gets into team of the season ahead of Fernandez. Yet when we sold Fernandez, I absolutely panicked because I couldn't cope. I couldn't live in a world where that was our midfield and had to bring Fernandez back. And then a front three of Tyler, Powell and Stanley. It looks about right. If I was picking it, I'd obviously have Fernandez in for O'Brien. But clearly the fans all disagree with me. So maybe I've just got Lewis O'Brien blindness. Our season review, obviously we overperformed, which is excellent. Finishing third, getting promoted. This is our Where Are They Now? So this is our team of 2018. This is going to be quite interesting. So the Where Are They Now? The only two from our 2018 team, our golden generation. I love the fact it describes it as the golden generation. Dean Morris, Anthony Harris, Shane Phillips, Mick Powell. But the only two still here are Phillips and Powell. Morris now playing in the Premier League. Harris at Norwich we've already looked at. Stephen Dunn is still at St Albans. I remember Stephen Dunn leaving to go to St Albans and it being a disaster because he was such a good player for us at the point of our diamond. He only played 15 games for us. It feels like so many more. Played his one season in the National League South with St Albans and has been down in the Regional League since, but played a lot of games for him. So can't really begrudge him moving, I guess. Jack Turnbull, who left us in the lurch to go to Southend, now playing in the Southern Premier Division Central. Serves him right for walking out on us when we needed him. Reece McNally is at Folkestone Invicta. Nathan Owen at Colville Town. Seth Patrick at Bromsgrove Sporting. He only left us last season because we kept him around for so long without him ever really doing anything. Rich de Groot, another one who left us too soon. Could have become a hero if he'd have stuck around. Left us to go to Sheffield. And yeah, serves you right for not looking long term, Rich. Brad Smith is at AFC Wolfrunians. That is an interestingly named team in the English Midland League. James Hayter is managing real reserves. Well, there you go. James Hayter, what a career. And retired players. Oh, does that mean Kieran Sheridan retired? Wow. So he left us, went to Forest, spent 3 years at Forest, got released and then retired. Kieran Sheridan retiring age 22. Also retired now Richie Brannigan, Joe McNulty, Rob Davis, Sean Benby, who is a home original, I think. Let's just check. Yep, a home original, now retired. And Yomi Samuels, who was a right back, if I remember rightly, all now retired. Our dynamics tell us that Phillips, Powell and Stanley are our team leaders. That sounds about right. End of season team meeting. Surely we're not looking for anything other than surviving. I'm optimistic that we can avoid a fight against relegation and stay up comfortably. Let's go for that one. Yeah, that seems about right. They're all happy with that. Good stuff. Board confidence, they're delighted. Marvellous. Pre-season start date, that's fine. And I didn't have a winning player of the season. Mick Powell only gets third in top goal scorer. And I'm one of the front runners for manager of the year. So we have to make sure we vote for the person with the lowest win ratio so that it's all about fixing it. Chris Brass gets my vote. and fingers crossed I end up winning that award. Now, summer transfers wise, I don't know how much we're going to be able to do until we turn professional. It's going to be interesting. We'll fast forward a little bit, we'll have a look at the Patreon players and we'll start forming a plan. Big news before we go any further, we're having to expand the stadium, despite the fact we never come close to filling it, but it's for league requirements, so we're adding another 1,500 seats, it says. Seats seems ambitious. Just give us some terracing. It's costing us £1.7 million. We've got some funding of £850,000 from the local authorities, but presumably the other close to £1 million is going to put us further into debt. It's going to take 5 months to complete. So I guess we're going to be playing on a reduced capacity. In fact, it says there, we're going to be playing on a reduced capacity, which isn't necessarily a big deal. But what on earth has that done to our finances? Nothing. How have we paid for it? I don't understand. There's £1 million there that isn't in the books. I feel like somebody's Eneknu who's going to prison, I think. And our youth setup, we haven't got any money to faff around with youth setup. Let's have a look at the Patreon players while we're here. So, scouting, shortlist. So, some of these are Patreon players. Some of these are players we just need to keep an eye on. Some of them are players who inexplicably make it onto the shortlist, and I don't know why. So, Ryan John is one of our Patreon players from a few years ago. He's still at Millwall. Spent the year on... he went to Chesham and then went to Millwall. Okay. Hasn't played for Millwall. When is he out of contract? He's still got a year left on his contract. We'll keep an eye on him. Perhaps try and bring him back. Henry Cheese is playing for St Pat's. And, I say playing. He's been there 3 years. I think we might be coming close to the end for Henry Cheese. We'll keep an eye on him. But he might be the first re-roll that we get. Because I suggest, after 3 years of not playing for St Pat's, if he's then released, he's probably going to retire. And we might have a Henry Cheese Jr. joining the ranks of a future youth intake. Sam Lines is at Southend. Let's have a look to see what he's doing there. Not a lot. Possibly similar sort of situation. Jack Edinburgh is at Canvey Island and sort of playing a little bit. I feel like there's more here. Have we had a retirement? Because I'm sure there's some... We need to look at the players who've left. And, there's so many of them. This is going to be a task. Let me look. The one who'd fallen off the list somehow, I don't know why, because he was on here indefinitely, is Nathan Currie, who is still at Bradford. His contract with Bradford is up this summer, so we'll monitor that situation. He might be one who might even be good enough to bring back in, so we'll keep an eye on him. I've noticed there is a slight problem. When players retire, they lose their nickname. So if you know you've had a Patreon player and they've previously been released, and I've now not mentioned them, they've probably retired. So... let me know. You're effectively back in the pool. I will double check, obviously, before adding players that you don't still exist in the game. But I assume that's what's happened with a couple of people. So we'll just keep an eye on that. We'll have a look at the current youth system as well. Obviously, we've got Larrick Fernandez, who is a standout star of previous youth intakes. But this is the current youth team. To give you an idea of players who are on the verge of breaking through. I'm not going to go through every single one of these individually because it would take a long time, but you can pick out your name from the lists and get an idea of where your current ability is and how close you are to breaking into the first team mix, I guess, for next year, which is obviously what we're all looking for. We want as many we want more Larrick Fernandez's. We want as many of our Patreon people to break into the team as we possibly can. The two I'm particularly keeping an eye on are David Cywinski, who is very close. I think if we hadn't have got promoted, he would be part of the squad next year. We'll review him when he comes back from his loan. And Alex Carmichael is another one who's very, very close. So we'll keep an eye on them and any others who might emerge. But obviously, if you are on the Patreon and you haven't yet picked a player, I do post the youth intakes in there every season, so keep an eye on those when they come in. And if you want a player in the game, you can do that by signing up for the Patreon at patreon.com/LOLLUJO. All the details on how to do that are over there. Well, that's answered our question about how this is going to work. Because in League 2, we've immediately gone full-time rather than waiting until July. So they've increased the amount of staff I can hire. Excellent stuff. We avoided a tax 6, we made a loss. We have a new kit sponsor, which is doubled the previous kit sponsor. It's still a negligible amount of money. We have some scouting budget, and we've thrown £500,000 into the team to help with running costs, which is nice. I still don't know how we're paying for that new ground. But with that as a balance, what does that do to the projection? No, not a lot. I guess we work with this. This is doable. We can work with that. Right. Job number 1 is to re-scout all of the players who have had decent scout reports recently. And goodness me, there are not many. If we look at everyone who's got a green recommendation off of previous scout reports, there's, I mean, how many players is that? 18 players. Well, at least we've got some new staff, so we can bring in some more scouts. Holy smoke. Mystery solved. It seems we took out a bank loan for the other part of the stadium. So if we have a look at debts and loans, yeah. So we took out an £850,000 bank loan. The other £850,000 came from that grant. So we do have a genuine balance, thanks to Sir Enoch Nuhu and his cash injection of just over 400,000. Decent transfer budget, lots of spare wage budget. I'm currently going through the squad, picking which players to offer new contracts to. Most of the current squad are getting new contracts, and I'm not sure what happens to players. Do they just automatically go professional? So let's take Mick Powell as an example, who's on a long contract. He is still on a part-time contract, so I guess everyone who's on a part-time contract is going to need a full-time contract so that they train full-time, I guess. So does that mean we're going to have to give him a massive pay rise, or is he going to accept? No, not Mick Pugh. Mick Powell. Mick Powell, there you go. So if we offer you a new contract, it even says offer it to him as a backup. See, I'm right to judge him the way I am. It's recommending I limit it to less than what he's earning at the moment. I mean, we can try. We might be about to scare off Mick Powell. Take out your yearly wage rise as well. And, oh, we might be able to force through a pay cut. Minimum fee release clause. Get rid of that nonsense. Exclude that. Promotion, wait, no, Mick, come on. Let's take that out as well now. Now I know how far I can push him. Just keep pushing. So we've got him to sign a 1-year extension, less money as a backup player, but he will now be training full time, which I guess is important. We're just going to have to go through and do that for everybody who's currently on a part-time contract, which is pretty much everybody I've not currently offered a contract to. So I'm going to do that and full-time everybody up and see where that leaves us with our wage budget. First signing of the summer. Target number 1 acquired. Larrick Fernandez is on loan until the end of next season, which also is the end of his Barnsley contract. So, you know, we might even end up in a situation where we sell him for 100 grand, loan him back immediately, keep him on loan for the entirety of his contract, then re-sign him permanently, which would be the perfect situation. But Larrick Fernandez is going to be a home player again for at least 1 more year, which is awesome. Signing number 2, it's another big one. The hero of Wembley, Lewis Tyler, having been here on loan for the last couple of years and played those 100 games, is going to have a 3rd season on loan at home. I don't know when his Aston Villa contract expires. Next summer. We've got to be looking to sign this guy permanently next summer, assuming, obviously, he has a decent season in the Football League, but he's going to be here for us again next season. We've got a lot of clubs offering contracts to this guy, Jimmy Wamsley, who is one of many right midfielders that we brought in last summer, I think, and he never got anywhere near the team. But he does have 4.5-star potential. The fact that he's a 6'5" winger, it's ridiculous. I mean, I guess we have to offer him a contract too, but I mean, I'm not particularly excited by him because we've never seen him play. Let's just try and force these down a little bit. The fact that we're competing against established teams at this level means he's probably not going to stay with us. We're probably going to let him go, or not let him go. He probably is going to walk out and go somewhere else, but interesting. This next one was a bit of a gamble. I've let my youth development person, even though he's 22, bring in a promising youngster without me scouting him first. I mean, he's been the star for Tiverton for years. Tiverton are good, aren't they? He's a 2.5-star player. I mean, he's probably never going to play for us. Probably need to be a little bit more careful with my budgets because £700 a week for a year is a lot of money for someone who's not likely to ever get in our team. But you live and learn. I won't make that mistake again. Back to the positives. Another big signing, Archie Proctor, who's obviously been on loan with us for the last couple of years, been a bit of a superstar of our defence, has now signed permanently, signing a 2-year contract. And on reasonable money as well. He's got a relegation release clause, but we're not going to get relegated. So less than £1,000 a week for Archie Proctor, which I'm not sure how that compares to what he's earning at the moment at his parent club. £400 a week at Wimbledon. Okay. I thought we were getting a Premier League youngster there, but we know he's good. So we'll bring him in and he can be... Is that Dean Morris? No, Stuart Morris. Who cares about Stuart Morris? My word. Another loan extension confirmed. Mick Pugh will be staying with us next year. I don't know how often he's going to play because we sort of went back to the 4-3-3 towards the end there, but as part of a 4-2-3-1, I think we'll struggle to find anyone better than Mick Pugh, so he's going to be back for next year, and we have now increased our stature. Now, is this the time to try and get Anthony Harris? We're still not officially confirmed as a League Two team. We're still listed as National League at the moment. We're going to keep trying. Once we're actually listed and published as a League Two team, that might be the time. We're now in League Two. We still can't get him. That dream might be over. Unless we... Well, we've hit the 1st of July. This is what the finances look like at the moment. We're hemorrhaging money. But we do have a decent chunk of transfer budget. Although, with all the changes to contracts, we don't have much in the way of wage budget to play with, which is a little bit of a worry. I don't think we can bring in many players. We had a lot of non-contract players who we've made real grown-up players, but we're not going to have much in the way of wiggle room. This is what the squad currently looks like. If that's the 4-2-3-1 version of it, there's probably... there's a lot of players who are still classed as 3-star players, and I know they're comparing that to the rest of the squad, but it was a squad that was good enough to get promoted. The board are looking for mid-table. It should be a squad good enough for a mid-table finish. Even McConey strengthened as a backup player in a position we needed to strengthen. Bringing back Larrick Fernandez is massive. Tyler as well. I think we definitely need a striker. Even if we decide to go with Powell, we need a proper backup. The fact that Cameron Archer is still being shown on that screen after all this time... My word, we need a better third best striker at the club than Cameron Archer. But other than that, we look okay. I'm going to go and raid all of the Premier League youth players that have been released. I'm going to ask my director of football for recommendations on released players as well. We've got a couple of players that my director of football is trying to sign. I'm not making the same mistake again. I'm waiting. There you go. So him, we're definitely not going to bring him in because he's not good enough, but he's someone my director of football identified as a player we should sign, but obviously we don't want him. Yes, we're going to withdraw that offer. Director of football also made an offer for this guy. We've not had a scout report back yet, so we'll wait and see on that one, and we'll kind of see how we get on, but we are struggling a little bit money-wise, which I think is going to be our big problem this season, because presumably, if we have a look at... are we going to be able to look at the League Two stats yet? Or has it got that thing where you can't look at the stats until the season has started? Team detailed? No, because we haven't played any matches yet. We can't look at the money stats. I suspect we're operating on smaller budgets than everyone else in the league by a mile. We've brought in a decent selection of players who are going to come straight into the first team mix and some promising youngsters as well. We're still looking to balance the books a little bit. As you can see, we're over our wage budget at the moment, but you can also see from here that Bajrami is hopefully on his way out of the club. A £32,500 offer from Walsall, mainly because he's earning nearly £2,000 a week. He's not our best. He's our 5th best defender. He barely got into the team last year, not because he wasn't good enough, but because he was constantly injured. So getting him off the books will be very handy, helps us rebalance things, and we'll have a look at the players that we've already brought in. So you already know about McConey and Proctor. Milan Polosky is one of the promising youngsters that we talked about. This guy's coming from West Ham. He's a 2.5-star current ability player, so almost as good as Mick Powell already, with bags of potential. He's a similar kind of striker to Mick Powell. He's quick, he's short, he's a decent finisher. I think we're probably getting more of the same with Milan Polosky. The only thing is he's got potential to be a much better player than Powell is currently. So he offers us I was going to say offers us something different. He doesn't offer us anything different at all. But if Powell can't cut it at this level, maybe Polosky can, and allow us to not have to change the system too much. Will Collar is one of the established first teamers I talked about. Will Collar, 27 years old, central midfield player, 3-star current ability. He does still have the potential to get a little bit better. Almost as good as Larrick Fernandez, better than Matty Wolf. Has been playing weirdly down in non-league for ages. Will Collar's a player I've regularly signed in non-league to legend over the years. He's at Brighton in real life. I'm surprised to see how far he's dropped, but then I guess he signed for Bromley when they were in League Two and has just been there as they've fallen. I don't really know what's gone on at Bromley. I don't know how they made it into League Two in the first place. And I don't know how they've managed to fall apart and end up in the National League South. But he was in that team last year, the star man for them, and will come into our midfield as a regular member of the squad, as will Ricardo Santos, former posh player in real life, which is one of the attractions of him. 3-star current ability, centre-back. Why can't I press the right buttons? He's enormous, a 6'5" centre-back, always handy to have around. He's as good as Archie Proctor. He's another one who's been playing, I think, below his level in recent years. Been at Barnet a long time in the non-league. I think he's good enough to make the step up. Was at Chester last year. I think he's good enough to make a step up to the Football League. He was good enough to play for Posh in League One years ago. So, you know, that one might burn me a little bit, but we do have other options at centre-back. Rory Morgan is another youngster, 18-year-old right-back, 2-star current ability, 4-star potential ability. He was at Watford previously. Not as good as Daly Campbell or Tanner, but we have let Hickman go, so we needed a third option at right-back, and Rory Morgan is that third option for us. We'll look at the players we've released in a second. I've just realised I've not shown you those. Tom Woodend is a backup goalkeeper, another youngster, 2.5-star current ability. So again, almost as good as Civiter and Humphreys with 5-star potential. He's come in from Manchester City on the cheap. Lawrence Maguire is another centre-back who can come into the first team mix, 27 years old, 3-star current ability, so right up there, similar ability to Proctor, Santos, Sass Davis, better than Bajrami and Colley. In fact, we probably should look to move Colley on as well if we're trying to balance the books, because he's another one who's being paid money and probably isn't ever going to get a look in with all these players who are ahead of him. Lawrence Maguire, plenty of league experience with Chesterfield, with Tranmere, and he'll be one of the 4 centre-backs that has to force their way into first-team reckoning. Alistair Birch is another striker option, a different kind of striker to what we get from Powell or Polosky. So if we decide to switch the system up a little bit and want to use a pressing forward, that's what we get with Alistair Birch, 2.5-star current ability. So again, ability-wise, already almost as good as some of the players who are already in the team. This guy is formerly of Manchester United and has potential to get much better than he currently is. Mark Cross is a backup centre-back youngster. A little bit old to be a youngster, but he was cheap. 21 years old, 2.5-star current ability, lots of potential ability. Was at Sheffield United previously. Tyreek Wilson is a backup left back for us. Obviously, Webber was our star man last year at left back. Wilson, a little bit old to come in as a backup at 24, but actually, ability-wise, is already almost as good as Wilson. We've still got Selchuk Pasala knocking around as well, so 3 good options at left back, and Wilson has lots of potential to improve as well. I don't really get what's happened here. It seems Plymouth have a real reserve team that plays in real leagues, so he's kind of after he left Manchester City, regularly moved around between the Plymouth first team and Plymouth reserve team. Plymouth reserves are listed as a standalone club, but I guess he can just freely move between the two of them and has played plenty of games in League One and also lots of games in the Super Non-League. It's a weird situation that I didn't know he had in English football, but I guess we do. Callum Ainley is probably one of the bigger risks of the summer. He's a winger who's probably similar kind of ability to Connor Stanley. We needed another winger because once we get past Stanley and Tyler, we don't have much in the way of backup. So he can be a backup on either side, but he's an expensive backup on either side at over £1,000 a week. Previously of Tranmere and Crewe, so over 250 games in the Football League, and we're bringing him in as a backup. It might be a bit of a risk in that he might get upset fairly quickly if I'm not starting him, but at the same time, with that kind of pedigree, he might force his way into the side on either wing or in behind a striker, because he can play anywhere across that attacking midfield 3. He might just force his way into the team, and the risk would be upsetting one of my established stars, which I guess is it's a nice problem to have Robert Jarvis is a central midfielder who's going to come straight into the first team mix, 21 years old, 3-star current ability, 4-star potential, similar ability to Collar, and he's in that group with Collar behind Fernandez, followed by Wolf, Carmichael, Cywinski, some of the youngsters we talked about before. Robert Jarvis comes in from Derby. And then lastly, for now, Morgan Ellison is another youngster, centre-back, 1.5-star current ability, potential to improve, and he's come in via Blackburn. There is potentially going to be a few more youngsters who come in if we can release players. It does rely on us being able to move a few more on. I'm thinking Bajrami and Colley, definitely. Of the players released, the only significant ones really, Jack Hickman has gone, Jordan Rossiter, Harrison Mayle, and a couple of youngsters who you never really saw. So, finances looks like this. We do need to move some players on. I think I'm going to probably try and move Colley on as well. Let's take these filters off. You can see I've been messing around trying to work out the balance of my squad. But I think what we need to do to give us more wiggle room, Joseph Colley's 25 years old now. Yes, he's got a huge amount of potential, but he's never really fulfilled it. He's injury prone. Part of me wants to give him another year because training 5 times a week might help him fulfill that potential. But the other part of me tells me he's 25. Let's move him on and just accept that he's someone who probably isn't ever going to fulfill his potential. This is what the team report currently looks like. So if we have a look at our squad depth based on the 4-3-3, there's still a few areas it would be nice to bring an extra player in on left wing particularly. Once we get beyond Lewis Tyler, we're looking at Tilly, Kai Brown, Lewis O'Brien. None of that's really ideal. We probably need another left winger. I'd still love to bring in a striker who's better than Mick Powell. But as you lot tell me all the time, that's easier said than done. That such a striker does not seem to exist in our price range / reputation catchment area thing. Better strikers than Mick Powell don't want to come to home. That seems to be the situation we've got ourselves in. But other than that, we're looking pretty solid. Anthony Harris, we did keep trying to get him, but he's gone out on loan to Port Vale in League One for the season, which is gutting. But I guess if we get promoted, we can have him next year. The board are looking for mid-table. I haven't actually looked at what the media prediction is. I hope it's not stupid. No, the media are looking for mid-table as well. Just a nice little mid-table season, nice and easy, and then push for promotion the year after. You've got to have some ambition after all. Another one in, another one out. So Bajrami has left the club, giving us a little bit of spensies, although the board don't give us any of it. And also taking nearly £2,000 a week off the wage budget. We've used that money to bring in Ryan de Havilland, who's a 23-year-old central midfielder, 3-star current ability, 4.5-star potential ability. So another one in that group behind Larrick Fernandez. But he's come in from Fulham and should be awesome. Money-wise, we're pretty much spent up. No, we had no interest for Colley, so unless we can move Colley on or we get big money offers for some of our stars, and we haven't had any of them this summer. Most summers recently we've been fighting off offers for the likes of Connor Stanley, Mick Powell, but we've had none of that this summer. So unless Colley goes or someone else goes for big money, and I think we might be done by the 19th of July. Right, these are our squad numbers for the season because, you know, some of you might want to order your home shirt from the link at the top of the description with your favourite player's name and number on the back. I've not changed any of them, so anyone who was already established, they've not changed, but particularly for you Patreon folk who might want to see where your number is, or for any of the new signings, I'll just scroll through ever so slowly. You can see we do still have far too big a squad, but they are our current squad numbers. And that pretty much is going to be our finished squad. I don't see that we're going to be able to afford to bring anyone else in unless we can move somebody on, which we don't seem to be able to do. All of which concludes our transfer business for the summer. Maybe. We're in a world of transfer windows now. So we've got our first game of the season coming up against Oldham, which will be on Friday's episode. And then the transfer window closes a few days later. So the transfer window closes between the two matches that will be on Friday's video. So there might be a little bit more business. I wouldn't expect there to be any, mainly because we don't have any transfer budget or any wage budget. Loans, maybe. My director of football, the Seal, is trying to bring in a left back on loan, which seems a little bit weird. Yeah, I don't know. We don't really need a left back, but We might find a loan that we want to bring in. It's unlikely to be him unless he ends up being spectacular. But as it stands right now, or in fact this is the team that we'll be playing against Oldham, because that match kicks off in a second for me. Kicks off in 2 days for you. But this is what we're going with for the first day of our life in the Football League. Injury to Larrick Fernandez, not ideal, but obviously he still has to start. We need to get as many of our home youths in the team as possible. Still 2 home originals in there. Who thought that way back when, on the first episode, that we'd have 2 players from that squad still in the team on our first day in the Football League? And if you did have to pick 2, it probably would have been the other 2. Harris and Morris rather than Phillips and Powell, but they're both going to be starting in the Football League. Civiter in goal, a back four of Webber, Proctor, Sass Davis and Daly Campbell, Phillips in front of them, new boy Will Collar in midfield alongside Larrick Fernandez, and a front 3 of Tyler, Powell and Stanley. Not a lot of new faces there, just Will Collar as the new signing in midfield. The new boys will take time to drift into the squad. We've got Ainley down there on the bench along with Woodend as well and Maguire. So there's going to be new faces who gradually start to force their way in. But a lot of them struggling a little bit for fitness. Ricardo Santos as an example. Just not fit enough yet to get into the team. So give them time. You know what? I'm just going to release Cameron Archer because I'm fed up seeing his face around the place. There you go. There's your last piece of transfer business. If you've enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.